The transport bay doors hissed open, and Marcus stepped into air that tasted like copper and starlight. 2 guards flanked him immediately, their crystalline armor reflecting his own battered combat fatigues. They didn't speak. Didn't need to. The neural dampeners around his wrists told him everything about his new status. War prize. Trophy. Property of the Valerian Crown. The corridor stretched ahead, walls made of something that looked like polished obsidian but moved when he wasn't looking directly at it. His boots made no sound. The guard's feet whispered against the floor like wind through dead leaves. Marcus had spent 3 years fighting the Valerians on 16 different worlds. He knew their weapons, their tactics, their burial rites. He'd never seen the inside of their ships. "Move faster, human." The voice came from the guard on his left, translated directly into his mind. The sensation made his teeth ache. They passed viewports, showing the void outside. Stars that didn't exist in human space. Constellations arranged in patterns that hurt to comprehend. Marcus had stopped trying to figure out where Earth was 2 days ago, when they'd made the last jump. Home was gone. Everything was gone. The entire human expeditionary force, 70,000 soldiers, reduced to him, the sole survivor of Outpost Carthage, the only one the Queen wanted. Double doors materialized ahead, growing from the wall like ice crystals in reverse. They split open silently, and Marcus was shoved forward into a chamber that could have held a cathedral. The ceiling arched up into darkness that pulsed with its own light. The floor was transparent, showing the ship's engines far below, burning with energy that turned his stomach. She sat on something that wasn't quite a throne, more like a piece of frozen space given form and purpose. Queen Sarathi of the Valerian sovereignty, keeper of 7 systems, breaker of the Terran line. She looked young, but Marcus knew she'd commanded fleets before his great-grandmother was born. Her skin held the faint luminescence all Valerians possessed, like moonlight caught under glass. Her eyes were black from edge to edge. No iris, no white, just endless dark that swallowed light. "Leave us." Her voice didn't need translation. It bypassed language entirely, meaning settling into his brain like stones into water. The guards hesitated. Marcus felt their uncertainty through the dampeners, a flutter of concern that surprised him. They actually cared about her safety. He could have laughed, as if he could hurt her, as if anything he did mattered anymore. They retreated. The doors sealed behind them with a sound like an exhaled breath. "Ha! Kneel," Sarathi said. Marcus remained standing. The dampeners activated, pain shooting through his nervous system like lightning through a wire. His knees hit the transparent floor hard enough to crack bone if he'd been less reinforced. The pain stopped. He stayed down, breathing through his teeth, refusing to show more weakness than necessary. "You destroyed my brother's flagship." She descended from the throne, each step measured, precise. 17,000 Valerian souls gone in an instant. You triggered a reactor cascade using nothing but damaged human explosives and a maintenance shaft. It shouldn't have worked. What was there to say? Yes, he'd done it. Yes, he'd killed them all. Yes, he'd do it again if given the chance. Look at me. He raised his head, met those impossible eyes, felt himself falling into them, and forced himself to focus on the curve of her jaw instead, the way her hair moved without wind to stir it. "My advisors wanted you executed publicly, displayed across every world we've conquered to show what becomes of human defiance." She circled him slowly, studying him like a puzzle with missing pieces. "But my brother and I were never close, and there are so few of you left who still remember how to fight." Circulation returned to Marcus's hands in pins and needles. He flexed his fingers carefully, waiting for the catch, the trap that was surely coming. "The war is over," Sarathi continued. "Humanity surrendered 6 months ago. The treaty gives me the right to claim spoils. I claimed you." "Why?" The word escaped before he could stop it. Speaking without permission would probably earn him pain, but he needed to know. Needed to understand why she'd singled him out of all the dying on Carthage. She smiled. It wasn't kind. It wasn't cruel either. It was something else. Something that made his pulse quicken for reasons he didn't want to examine. "Because you interest me. Because you should have died with the others but didn't. Because I have uses for someone who knows no loyalty to me, who has every reason to want me dead, who can't be corrupted or convinced or controlled through the usual means." She stopped in front of him. "Stand." Marcus rose slowly, testing for restriction. None came. They stood eye to eye, though she was half a head shorter. Somehow she still made him feel small. "You will serve in my household guard. You will protect what I protect." You will go where I go. You will answer to me alone. Her hand moved and something materialized in her palm, a piece of armor that glowed with internal light. And if you prove worthy, I may tell you why you're really here. It melted into his skin, spreading across his torso like living metal, settling into place with a sensation like coming home after years of war. Marcus gasped, stumbling back as information flooded his mind. Ship layouts, security protocols, the names and faces of everyone in the Queen's inner circle. Report to Commander Vex for training. You have 1 week to prove you belong here. Sarathi turned away, dismissing him with emotion. Don't disappoint me, Marcus Chen. I went to considerable trouble to keep you alive. The doors opened. The guards returned, their expressions unreadable behind their helmets. Marcus walked between them in a daze, the new armor warm against his skin, questions burning in his throat. How did she know his full name? What did she mean, keeping him alive? What uses could a human soldier possibly serve in a Valerian court? The training hall made human military facilities look like playgrounds. Weapons-lined walls that stretched up into shadows. Combat drones hovered in holding patterns, their targeting systems tracking every movement. Commander Vex stood in the center, 7 feet of scarred carapace and cold appraisal. He'd lost his lower left arm to human plasma fire. The stump was sealed with ceremonial metal. You're the pet. Vex's mental voice carried disgust like an aftertaste. The Queen's latest curiosity. They never last long. They? Marcus asked. She's collected broken things before. A craven war monk. A Siceli navigator who went mad from void sight. A Terran pilot who thought he could outfly death. Vex moved closer, looming over Marcus with practiced intimidation. The monk died in training. The navigator threw herself into a star. The pilot lasted 6 months before something in the palace killed him. What killed him? That's what you need to survive long enough to find out. Vex gestured, and combat drones descended like mechanical birds of prey. Fight or run. Either way, you'll learn what the Queen's protection is worth. Marcus didn't run. He'd stopped running on Carthage, when running meant leaving his squad to die. The first drone struck from above, energy blade extended. He rolled left, the new armor responding to his thoughts faster than his old gear ever had. His hand found a training staff from the wall rack, wood and metal alloy that hummed with kinetic dampeners. The second drone came from behind. Marcus spun, using the staff to redirect its momentum, sending it crashing into the third. The armor fed him tactical data, trajectories and probabilities, but it couldn't fight for him, couldn't make the decisions that meant survival or death. 4 more drones activated, then 6, then 10. Vex watched with folded arms as Marcus fought, blocking strikes that would have killed him, absorbing impacts that cracked ribs despite the armor's protection. Sweat ran into his eyes. Blood from a split lip filled his mouth with copper taste. A drone got through his guard, blade scoring across his shoulder. Pain, white-hot and immediate. Another hit his leg, dropping him to one knee. This was it? This was how he died? Not on a battlefield, but in a training hall, proving nothing to no one. Enough. Sarathi's voice cut through the chaos. The drones froze mid-strike, retreating to their holding positions. She stood in the doorway, flanked by attendants who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Commander Vex, I said test him, not break him. Apologies, my queen. Vex bowed, but Marcus heard no apology in his tone. I was curious how long he'd last. Your curiosity is satisfied? Sarathi approached Marcus, studying the blood running down his arm. Her fingers brushed the wound, and pain vanished, replaced by warmth that spread through damaged tissue. Healing. She was healing him. He fights well for prey, Vex admitted. Better than the others, but skill alone won't keep him alive in the palace. No. Sarathi helped Marcus stand, her touch clinical, impersonal. It won't, which is why his training begins now, not next week. Vex, clear your schedule. The human needs to learn our ways before the conclave arrives. The conclave? Vex's mental voice carried surprise. My queen, surely you don't intend to present him to the other rulers. The political implications are my concern, not yours. Sarathi's tone went cold enough to freeze stars. He'll stand at my side during the summit. He'll be seen. He'll be questioned. And he'll answer correctly, or we'll all suffer the consequences. She turned to Marcus, black eyes reflecting his bloody, battered face. 5 days from now, every major power in this sector will gather on this ship. They'll be watching for weakness, divisions, any sign that my reign is unstable. You, Marcus Chen, are a statement. A message that says I take what I want and bend it to my will. Do you understand? Marcus nodded slowly, pieces clicking into place. He wasn't just a war prize. He was a symbol. Proof that even humanity's best soldiers could be broken, could be made to serve their conquerors. The thought should have made him angry. Instead, he felt something else. Something like purpose. Good. Sarathi released him, stepping back. Vex will teach you protocol. How to stand, how to speak, how to kill without anyone seeing you move. 5 days, human. Don't waste them. She left as quickly as she'd arrived, her attendants scrambling to keep pace. Marcus stood in the training hall, armor cooling against his skin, blood drying on his shoulder. Vex studied him with new assessment, like maybe he'd seen something worth teaching. Well, the commander said, we have 100 protocols to learn and you can barely stand. Shall we begin, or would you prefer to rest and prove the queen wrong about your worth? Marcus picked up the fallen training staff. His ribs screamed protest. His leg throbbed where the drone had struck. None of it mattered. He'd survived worse. He'd survived this. Begin, he said. Vex's scarred face split in something that might have been a smile. Wrong answer, human. We began the moment you stepped onto this ship. Now we see if you can finish what's been started. This time Marcus was ready. The next 4 days blurred together in a haze of training that made boot camp look gentle. Vex drove Marcus through every scenario, every social situation, every possible way he could embarrass or endanger the queen, how to stand 3 steps behind and to the left, how to read threat levels in alien body language, how to kill with improvised weapons when conventional ones were forbidden in diplomatic spaces. The Craven ambassador will try to touch you, Vex explained during a brief rest period. It's how they assess value. Allow it, but don't flinch. Flinching implies the queen's possessions are poorly trained. I'm not a possession. The words came out before Marcus could stop them. Vex's mental voice carried something like approval. No, you're a soldier pretending to be one. Remember that distinction when things get difficult. They practiced formal greetings in 17 different languages, most of which human throats couldn't properly pronounce. The armor helped modulating his vocal cords, but Marcus still sounded like he was gargling gravel when attempting Cecily honorifics. Better, Vex said after the 100th attempt. You only insulted their ancestors back 3 generations that time. Progress. The palace's inner chambers were off limits to most of the guard, but Vex brought Marcus through them anyway, pointing out hiding spots and escape routes. The queen has enemies everywhere. Some wear friendly faces, others don't bother hiding their hatred. Your job is to spot the knife before it reaches her back. Why me? Marcus asked as they moved through a gallery filled with weapons from 1,000 conquered worlds. She has hundreds of guards. Why does she need a human? Vex stopped in front of a display showing a human assault rifle, Marcus's rifle, the one he'd used on Carthage. We're bred for loyalty, conditioned from birth to serve the crown. We can't think the way enemies think. Can't see betrayal from angles we're programmed to ignore. But you? He turned to face Marcus. You owe her nothing. You see everything as a potential threat because to you, everything is added. Terrible, but sound. Marcus studied his old weapon through the display glass, remembering the weight of it, the recoil, the way it had bucked against his shoulder during the last stand at Carthage. The other humans she collected, he said quietly. What really happened to them? Vex was silent for a long moment. Then, the monk challenged an assassin and lost. The navigator saw something in the void that broke her mind. The pilot discovered a conspiracy that reached too high. He tried to warn the queen. Vex's mental voice dropped to something like regret. By the time she believed him, he was already dead. Who killed him? That's the question the queen's been trying to answer for 2 years. And the reason you're here, whether she's told you or not. She thinks you'll succeed where the others failed. Vex moved toward the exit. I think you'll die like they did, but I've been wrong before. The night before the conclave, Sarathi summoned Marcus to her private chambers. He'd never been there before, never seen the space where the queen actually lived rather than ruled. It was smaller than he expected, furnished simply, with windows looking out at stars that seemed close enough to touch. She stood at the largest window, wearing something that looked like a dress made of captured starlight. No armor, no crown, just her, alone, watching the void. Tomorrow they'll come, she said without turning. The Craven Dominants, the Cecily Collective, the Terran colonial government, all here to celebrate our victory and negotiate the terms of humanity's subjugation. Her reflection in the glass showed no emotion. You'll stand beside me and say nothing unless directly addressed. You'll be everything they expect a broken human soldier to be. defeated, compliant, harmless. "And if they try something?" Marcus asked. Now she turned, black eyes catching light from some source he couldn't identify. "Then you'll show them why I chose you. Why humanity fought for so long despite being outmatched. Why you, specifically, survived when 70,000 didn't." She crossed to a table where armor lay waiting, black and silver, marked with her personal insignia. "Not ceremonial. Combat ready. Wear this tomorrow. Some of my guests will recognize the design. Let them wonder why the Queen arms her human trophy for a peace summit." Marcus lifted the armor, feeling the weight of it, the deadly purpose built into every piece. "You're expecting trouble. I'm expecting opportunity." Sarathi moved closer, near enough that he could feel the warmth of her luminescent skin. "Someone wants me dead, Marcus. Someone close enough to poison the pilot before he could name them. Someone who'll see tomorrow's gathering as the perfect chance to strike." Her hand touched his chest, right over his heart. "And you're going to help me find them?" "By seeing what my loyal guards can't see, because loyalty blinds them." She stepped back, the moment of closeness ending as quickly as it began. The pilot trusted someone. That trust killed him. "I trust no one, which is why I'm still alive." "But trust isn't what I need from you." Sarathi smiled that not-quite-kind smile. "I need you to do what you did on Carthage. Fight impossible odds. Survive when survival seems impossible. Protect what matters, even when it costs you everything." She moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. "Get some rest, Marcus Chen. Tomorrow we see if you're really worth the trouble I've taken." She left him alone in her chambers, armor in his hands, questions multiplying faster than answers. He should have felt angry. Used, manipulated, into serving the woman who'd conquered his people. Instead, he felt something disturbingly close to purpose. Like maybe this was what he'd been training for his entire life, even before he knew it. The conclave arrived with the sunrise, ships materializing from jump space in formations that spoke of power and paranoia. The Craven brought dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. The Cecily arrived in vessels that looked organic, grown rather than built. The human delegation came in a single cruiser, small and apologetic, representatives of a broken species come to bow before their betters. Marcus stood 3 steps behind and to the left of Sarathi's throne, wearing the black and silver armor, hands clasped behind his back. The receiving hall held 500 dignitaries and their guards. Every eye found him eventually. Some stared with curiosity,
others with contempt.
The human delegation wouldn't look at him at all. The Craven ambassador approached first, massive and scaled, moving with predatory grace. "Queen Sarathi, your hospitality honors us." His eyes, all 6 of them, focused on Marcus. "And this is the famous survivor. May I?" Sarathi inclined her head. Permission granted. The ambassador's clawed hand extended, touching Marcus's face, reading the scars there, the history written in damaged tissue. Marcus held perfectly still, letting the alien assess him like livestock. "Fascinating," the Craven rumbled. "Such resilience. Such capacity for violence barely contained. I can see why you kept this one." He withdrew his hand, leaving shallow scratches that stung. A trophy worth displaying. Cecily representatives came next, their translucent bodies shifting colors as they spoke in harmonics that the armor translated into meaning. The Queen keeps strange company. Does she not fear the bite of a wounded animal? Fear? Sarathi's voice carried amusement. "No, but I respect what wounded animals can become when properly motivated." The human delegation arrived last. Ambassador Keiko Tanaka, former admiral, now reduced to begging for scraps from the table. She looked at Marcus once, pain and anger flickering across her face before professional neutrality returned. "Your Majesty," she said, bowing deeper than protocol required, "we come bearing treaties for your review. Terms of reparation. Population transfers. The dismantling of our remaining military infrastructure. All in time, Ambassador." Sarathi gestured toward the banquet tables being unveiled. "First, we celebrate. Tomorrow we discuss surrender." The feast was an elaborate dance of politics and poison. Not literal poison scanners saw to that, but the kind that came wrapped in compliments and hidden in treaty language. Marcus watched everything, cataloging faces, noting who spoke to whom, who avoided eye contact, who kept glancing at the Queen when they thought no one was looking. A young Valerian server stumbled near the Queen's table, spilling wine that hissed when it hit the floor. Acid-laced. Marcus moved without thinking, putting himself between Sarathi and the server, one hand catching the falling pitcher before more could spill. The hall went silent. Guards rushed forward, seizing the server, who screamed protests of innocence even as scanners confirmed the poison. Sarathi remained seated, perfectly calm, watching Marcus with those impossible eyes. Well, she said quietly. That was faster than expected. The server was dragged away. Conversation resumed, nervous and forced. Marcus returned to his position, heart hammering, armor tingling where drops of acid had struck. Vex appeared at his shoulder, mental voice grim. That was foolish. You could have been killed. That's the job, Marcus replied. No, the job is watching, protecting, not throwing yourself in front of obvious attacks.
Vex paused.
Though I'll admit it was effective theater. Now everyone's wondering what else the Queen's human can do. The banquet continued for hours, courses appearing and disappearing, alliances forming and dissolving over wine and lies. Marcus stayed alert, watching for the next attempt, the next threat. It didn't come. Too obvious now, too expected. Whoever wanted Sarathi dead was smarter than using servants. Late in the evening, Ambassador Tanaka approached. She looked older than Marcus remembered, worn down by defeat and impossible choices. Soldier, she said in English, the first time anyone had spoken his native language since Carthage. I'm told you volunteered for this assignment. No, ma'am. I was claimed as war spoils. Her eyes held sorrow, anger, resignation. Then you're a prisoner, a slave. We can petition for your release as part of the treaty negotiations. No. The word came out harder than Marcus intended. I'm exactly where I need to be. Tanaka studied him for a long moment. You've gone native. Stockholm Syndrome. It happens to POWs who... I've gone nowhere, ma'am. I'm doing my job, protecting what needs protecting. He met her gaze steadily. Even if it's not what you think it should be. She left without another word, shoulders bent with the weight of truths she didn't want to face. Marcus watched her rejoin the human delegation, saw them whispering, saw their looks of pity and disgust. They thought he'd betrayed them. Maybe he had. Maybe betrayal was just another word for survival when all the good options were gone. The attack came during the closing ceremony. Not at Sarathi, but at the Sicily delegation, a plasma charge that turned 3 of their number into vapor before anyone could react. Chaos erupted. Guards from every faction drew weapons. Marcus had his hand on Sarathi's arm, pulling her toward cover. When he saw it, a Valerian guard, one of Sarathi's own, adjusting his aim toward the Queen instead of the attackers. The angle was wrong, the timing perfect. This wasn't protection. This was execution. His armor had weapons, small ones, forbidden in diplomatic spaces but present nonetheless. A neural stunner keyed to his thoughts. He fired without hesitation, dropping the traitorous guard before the shot could connect. The guard fell, armor sparking, weapon clattering across the floor. Vex was there instantly, securing the fallen guard, checking for signs of consciousness. Alive, he confirmed. Barely. We'll get answers. But Marcus wasn't watching the guard. He was watching the crowd, seeing who looked surprised and who looked angry that the attempt had failed. A Valerian advisor, 3rd rank, someone close enough to matter but not so close they'd be obvious. Their face showed fury for just a moment before smoothing into shock. Him, Marcus said, pointing. Left side, green robes, pretending to comfort the craven ambassador's aide. That's your conspirator. Sarathi followed his gaze, saw what Marcus saw, understood. She made a gesture and guards moved, quietly, efficiently, surrounding the advisor before he could escape. No accusations, no public spectacle, just removal smooth and final. How did you know? She asked Marcus as order slowly returned to the hall. Because everyone else was watching the Sicily. He was watching you, waiting to see if his backup plan worked. Marcus's hands were shaking now, adrenaline catching up with action. It's what I would have done. Sarathi took his arm, steadying him, her touch warm despite everything. The pilot saw the same thing, made the same connections. But he tried to handle it alone. She looked at the chaos around them, delegates arguing, guards establishing perimeters. You didn't. I'm not alone. The words surprised Marcus as much as they seemed to surprise her. I have Vex. I have the guard. I have... He trailed off, uncertain how to finish. You have me, Sarathi said softly, as I have you. That's what protection means, Marcus Chen. Not loyalty, not ownership. Partnership built on mutual necessity. She released his arm, stepping back into her role as queen. Take the advisor and the guard to interrogation. I want names. I want everyone involved in this conspiracy identified before dawn. Yes, my queen. Vex bowed and left to coordinate the investigation. The hall gradually emptied, delegates returning to their ships with nervous speed. The Cecily dead were gathered with proper ceremony. The human delegation departed without looking back, Tanaka's expression unreadable. By midnight, only Sarethi's inner circle remained, gathered in a secured chamber deep within the ship. Advisor Kaleth has been part of my government for 30 years, Sarethi said to the assembled counselors and generals. He watched me ascend to the throne, supported my expansion campaigns, helped negotiate the Terran surrender. She looked at each face in turn.
Oh, here. Didn't suspect him? Silence. Uncomfortable shifting?
No one had suspected. Kaleth had been too trusted, too established, too perfect in his loyalty to question, and yet a human soldier spotted him in seconds. Sarethi let that sink in. Because the human has no loyalty to cloud his judgment, no assumption of nobility or honor to blind him to obvious threat. He sees us as we are, not as we pretend to be. My queen, one of the generals began. Surely you don't suggest we abandon loyalty as a principle. I suggest we learn from our mistakes. The pilot died because no one would believe him over trusted advisors. I nearly died today for the same reason. Sarethi stood, power radiating from her like heat. From this moment, Marcus Chen is elevated to personal guard commander. He answers to me alone. His judgments on security matters are final. Anyone who questions this questions me. Too fast, too unprecedented. A human commanding Valerians! Unthinkable. Impossible. Sarethi let them shout themselves hoarse before speaking again. It's done. Accept it or resign your positions. She looked at Marcus, who stood frozen in shock. Well, do you accept? Vex's mental voice touched his mind privately. Say yes, fool. She's giving you the authority to actually make a difference. Of 70,000 dead? Of the choice to survive when he should have died? Of protection meaning something more than just following orders? I accept, he said, but I want Vex as second. And I want access to everything. All intelligence, all communications, all personnel files. If I'm responsible for her safety, I need the tools to do it right. Silence. Then Sarethi laughed, genuine and surprised. Demanding terms already? Good. Weakness would have disappointed me. She nodded to her advisors. Give him what he asks for. Vex, help him establish protocols. The rest of you, find me every connection Kaleth had, every meeting, every communication. I want the entire conspiracy uprooted before it spreads. The meeting dissolved. Marcus found himself alone with Sarethi as her counselors departed. She looked tired suddenly, the weight of rule showing through the perfect composure. You could have let me die, she said quietly. Return to Earth a hero, the human who killed the Valerian queen. No, I couldn't. Marcus met her eyes, those impossible black depths. Because then all this means nothing. Carthage means nothing. Surviving means nothing if I waste it on revenge. Then what does it mean? He thought about that. About purpose and protection and the strange path that had led him from a battlefield to a throne room. It means finding something worth protecting, even if it's not what I expected. Even if it's complicated and messy and doesn't fit any story I thought I'd be part of. Sarethi smiled, and this time it was neither kind nor cruel. It was real. You're going to make a terrible Valerian, Marcus Chen? But perhaps that's exactly what we need. She left him standing in the empty chamber, new rank settling on his shoulders like armor he wasn't sure he'd earned but would wear anyway. Through the windows, stars burned in their eternal patterns, indifferent to human struggles and alien politics. Marcus watched them for a long time, thinking about paths not taken and futures unwritten. Vex found him an hour later. The interrogation is complete. Kaleth named 17 co-conspirators across 5 systems. The Queen has ordered their arrest. The commander's mental voice carried something new. Respect, maybe. Or the beginning of it. You'll need to review the evidence. Sign the warrants. It's part of your new duties. How do you feel about serving under a human? Marcus asked. Vex considered. Ask me in 6 months. If you're still alive, I'll tell you. Fair enough. Marcus followed Vex to the command center, where screens displayed data on the conspiracy, the attempted assassination, the security failures that had nearly ended her reign. He studied it all, learning the patterns, understanding the game he'd been pulled into. Somewhere on Earth, humans lived under Valerian occupation, trying to rebuild from the ruins of war. Somewhere among the stars, other species watched and waited to see if Serethi's rule would hold. And here on this ship, Marcus Chen stood in a position he'd never imagined, protecting someone he'd been trained to kill, serving a cause he didn't fully understand yet, but he was alive, and that meant something. That meant everything. The work began.